So I wanted to talk to people in the chat about going through CRNA school with family, whether they're with you or not with you in the CRNA program. And I know you went through CRNA school. You had a baby before or after you were in school, or just as you started.
Before.
And uh, and you made it through, right? So, and I get this question a lot from a lot of people. How do you manage CRNA school and family life while in school? So, like, what kind of support system do you feel you need if you're going to attend the school with children?
Um, I think it all depends on if you plan on staying around family or, moving out of state. I moved out of state, so I didn't have family with me. But I knew I was gonna like hire a nanny full time. At the time I was married, so I had my husband. I was able to coordinate like my clinical days off for her to take care of her, for him to take care of her. Um, I was one of the ones that got hit with COVID, so luckily, a lot of my classes were online, so that really helped. We didn't have sim, but there were times where, like, I didn't have my nanny. Like, I brought my kid to school. Some of the upperclassmen watched her while I like had to take an exam at the last minute that my nanny canceled. I would have sim, and they were okay with me bringing her so I can like finish sim. So I think it's all you kind of have to do what you kind of have to do what you have to do. You know what I mean? I was blessed to be at a clinical site where, I only had to be there 3 days a week, so that kind of helped out a lot. But if I, rotated out, I would just figure it out. I would either have like family come and stay with me a little bit so that I'm able to like attend clinicals. But I think who you have around you, and even if you don't have a lot of support, you're gonna have to fork out the money to have somebody watch them and like explain to them, how important it was. Towards like the last year or so of school, my nanny ended up being one of my mentees' sister, and that really helped. So of course, like she had a sister going to CRNA school, like she had me, so she kind of knew how important it was to, be there so that she could watch my daughter. Um, yeah, you just kind of have to find your own thing, especially when it comes to studying, because I had my daughter a lot. She was younger, she was under a year when I started. So like putting her on a schedule to where, I personally had to sacrifice sleep in order to study, but that's what works for me. I know a lot of people, value
Hmm.
sleep, value the gym, value different things when they're in school, but for me, I had to sacrifice sleep because that was my quiet time to where I can like do most of my studying at night. So that's kind of what I did.
Now, now, you were lucky enough to, at the time, be married with your husband near your school, correct?
Correct.
And me, on the other hand, my son was 2 years old when I left the CRNA school. I went to a whole nother state, so my spouse, my wife stayed here, and I went to school. So, and my situation was daycare. We had to put my son in daycare, and I was lucky enough to still be in the I guess, yeah, I would say lucky enough to still be in the Army Reserve. So I was kind of, it was mandatory for me to come back to do my military service 1 weekend a month back to where I lived at. And the military paid for that, for me to travel back and forth. I just had to change my address to a California address. So they paid for me to come do my military training weekend. And while I was here on my training weekend, I would just go home, and stay at home and visit my kid and my wife. And so I would see my family once a month, like physically, but like other than that, it would just be over the phone or FaceTime or something like that. Um, so either way, it was still a sacrifice that had to be made. Now, my question is, even though you had your family there with you, do you feel like you were like there at home with them all the time, or do you feel like you still missed out on a lot?
I mean, I still feel like I missed out on, certain things. Just like being more like in tune with my husband at the time, and just like date night stuff like that. Like I wasn't able to do just because studying was more important at the time.
And I think, and you know, what's crazy is like I had other SRNAs reach out to me, like that, you know, they were in the same situation as you, and they were having a hard time studying because they had older children that wanted their time,
Yeah.
and they began falling back in schoolwork because of that.
Mhm.
And the best advice that I gave them was, hey, you know, you're in school now. Like, even though you're home, you're not home, right? So you got to find somewhere to study. Like, you might not be able to study at home, especially because you got older kids that want to spend time with
Yeah.
dad.
You might have
You
to
might
go
have
to
to,
the
like,
library.
hey, I got to go to Starbucks or the library, a
Mhm.
separate room or something like that.
Yeah. I think it's also important to, let your family, whether that's your partner, your kids that are older, know that you're not going to be able to spend time with them. Like, let them know ahead of time because, it seems 3 years doesn't seem like a long time when you're in it. It seems like forever, but it's literally a short period of your life. And if you can explain it to them and give them a heads up, like, I want you to know I'm not going to be going out, I'm going to miss holidays, birthdays, because anesthesia is just going to consume your entire life for those 3 years. So you want to make sure that, they're aware of like the lack of time that you're going to be spending with them because it is a big shock to them, as like outsiders, supporting you going through the program because they're not going to understand why you have to study so much. And it
You
is
have to
very
wait.
different if your partner has been around with
You have to
you,
wait.
if you were going through nursing
Because
school
I'm
or
on the,
another program, because the amount of studying that you have to do in CRNA school is completely different from any other program that you have been through. So that's going to be a complete change. So that's going to be more of a shock. So you want to let them know and just keep reminding them throughout the process that, this is not going to be forever.
yeah, and no, even and, you know, I say even though like we remind them, like it really don't sink in until
No, it doesn't.
like it's happening, you know. And
Mm-hmm.
they say that if you one thing about CRNA school, like if your relationship broken going into
You're not
it,
going to survive.
you ain't
You're
you're
not
not
going to
gonna
survive.
survive. And I've seen it. I've seen it happen. I've seen people lose their fiancés, boyfriend, girlfriends, divorce, all of that. You know, it is tough. Like especially when you that partners used to be like y'all used to being in the house together and doing everything
Mm-hmm.
together and going out on weekends and vacations and all of that, and that just abruptly stops.
Yeah.
You know. So so then like you're so focused on anesthesia that like you say you're not in tune to the other partner like for the next 3 years. Some people can handle that. Some people
Some
can't
people
handle that.
can't. Yeah.
Some people can't handle that. So I say this to say if you go to CRNA school and you got a boyfriend or fiance or whatever and y'all got issues, y'all ain't gonna make it.
No.
Y'all ain't gonna make it. You're not gonna make it. Like and people say, "Oh yeah, we good." Okay, it really will test your relationship. Stop, Brandon. Stop. Um, do you feel like as far as money, like money wise, as far as like going into school with a family, like did you have to take out student loans? Did you have to save? How did you pay for your nanny and all of that?
I took out student loans. I took out extra loans just to cover the expenses and pay for my nanny. That's kind of how, because I wasn't working at the time. So,
Hmm. And the number one question I'm getting lately is, "Oh, can I work during CRNA school?"
no, you can't.
Like, I don't think people understand like the seriousness of like what we do. Like, for you to
Hmm.
believe that you should be working, you should be able to work and go to CRNA school,
Yeah.
right? 'Cause I want y'all to think about this. Like, when people go through medical school, they don't work in medical school.
Yeah.
When they in residency, they don't work when they in anesthesia residency. So like
No.
you want to divide your time between doing that nursing job and being at CRNA school and doing clinicals. Like what time you will you have to study?
Yeah, you're not gonna have time to study. You're not
you
gonna have
know.
enough time to
And I
study.
think, me personally, I think studying is more important than the little seven, eight, $900
Yeah, studying
for the
is
36
much.
for the 36 hours you worked.
Yeah, it's
Like
much more important
you gave up 36 hours of work of studying to work a
to work.
job to pay
Yeah.
nothing. Yeah. What up, D'Anthony? So like for me, my situation was like I miss birthdays.
Oh, yeah.
I miss a lot. I miss a lot, but like for me, like for my kid, because they were younger, they didn't notice I was gone. So if you got younger kids, that little 3 years you're in school, they won't even notice it. Like if you got older kids, they may notice you gone a lot more than a younger kid because like my son was 2, I finished school, he was 5. He didn't notice I was gone, legit. And we actually had somebody that had uh, children in school, like while they were in school. So that
Yeah,
was
I know several
interesting.
people that had kids in school.
And it really comes down to how supportive your program is,
I
honestly.
agree. I think it's definitely your program makes a big difference.
Your program has no incentive to work with you. They don't have to work with you in your family situation or your children's situation, or if you decide to get pregnant in school. They don't have to. Like, they got 200 other people that's willing to take your spot
Hmm.
and pay to be in your position. So I think it really comes down to planning, you guys. You guys got to plan, like, especially even more planning when you have a family involved, to be honest with you. How's family life afterwards?
It's great.
And my son, I think my son being annoying right now. Brandon, what are you doing? Could you stop?
I think
I'm
family
just sending
life is
him back.
great.
I would say that it's going to open up so many more opportunities for you after you graduate, you guys, that you'll be able to do things you didn't have you couldn't do before, especially if you come from like a family that doesn't have like generational wealth or anything like that. So like now, like we just saw you post your little stories, like you out here living it up,
Yeah, no.
living it up, you know. Um, how did you handle health insurance while you were in school?
I was on my husband's insurance.
That's another thing people need to consider. If you single mom or something like that, like you you're gonna have to like find health insurance. Sometimes I think the school offers some.
Yeah, the school
Uh,
offers it.
Another thing is if you qualify. I'm not sure if you qualify, but there were some students that actually got food stamps in school.
I
Like,
did.
damn, I'm jealous.
I did. I
I'm
got
jealous
food
of the
stamps.
motherfucker.
I got the thing. What was that? An employment thing that they gave? I got that too. Like the COVID
I'm
thing.
jealous, man.
Hmm. I sure
I'm
did.
jealous. You know, I wish I can I qualify because I sure would have used them. Like, and another thing people need to plan for is like once you graduate, it takes a while for you to
Oh
credential.
yeah, it does
Assuming you
take a while.
pass your boards,
Hmm.
assuming you pass your boards right away.
Yeah, you definitely. That's the part that I feel like a lot of people did not talk about is after you pass boards, like your money runs out. Like you need to work.
Your money runs out, right? So you need to work. You it may, if you're lucky, it may take you 2 months to credential. It to as long as 6 months, you guys.
Yeah.
So like be in that time period, you don't have a job, you're not getting student loans, you need to figure out how you're going to live for the most part. And if you're lucky enough to have a spouse or significant other that can hold you down, great. But like Esther and myself, like you still got your RN license. You may be able to go work on your RN license. It's ghetto, but
It's so ghetto. Would not recommend. Oh my God, I hate every moment of it. It's
You gotta do what you
the
gotta do to
worst.
pay
Yeah,
bills.
you do.
Oh Lord.